Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar to celebrate the publication of the Meaningful Tourism Index 2023. It's my great pleasure that after a lot of hard work, a lot of hard thinking, developing, working with a wonderful group of people supporting the project, both in the Meaningful Tourism Center and externally, we are now able to publish and to present and give to the public the Meaningful Tourism Index 2023. My name is Professor Dr. Wolfgang Georg Alt, and I'm the CEO of the Meaningful Tourism Center and the editor of the publication, which is free of charge, downloadable. You will see the information about this at the end of the webinar. So what we will do today is me walking you through the publication, explaining what is meaningful tourism, why is it necessary and makes sense to measure with different KPIs, with key performance indicators, the quality, benefits, and satisfaction of all the different stakeholders in tourism. And that will be followed by some interviews with 4 experts from different fields in tourism who will add their insights and their views on meaningful tourism, on tourism statistics, on how to measure sustainability for all the stakeholders involved. So I hope that this publication will help to make the meaningful tourism paradigm more known in the tourism industry, and that more people will use the tools presented and the results presented in the index to use this for their work for a better future of tourism. So let me start the presentation, and this is actually what will be the what is the book you will see, and which you can, as I said, download for free. There is a this of course is a summary, so for everybody interested in the detailed results for all the indicators and for all the rankings and for an analysis, of course, we offer to do this. Please contact us if you are interested in that. So let me start the presentation. So as you can see, we have looked at 88 countries, and they represent about 90% of global tourism in terms of turnover, arrivals, workforce. I will talk about this a bit later. We developed and used 72 indicators, and we are working with the 6 stakeholders of meaningful tourism. Again, I will talk a bit more about that. So this is the content list, and we will go through this, maybe not in every detail for every page, but to give you a general idea. To start with, you can see the first headline, "The house is on fire." And that, of course, relates to the development of the climate catastrophe, but also to the developments of tourism in the way of over-tourism, of being no longer seen as only a positive force. And to the fact also that everybody has been putting a lot of hope into the 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, but we are seeing that we are not getting much further in this respect also. So, and the basic insight is tourism has a destructive side, which cannot be denied, for the environment, for cultural homogenization, but it also has a positive side as a source of joy, of learning, of engagement with other people. And this is what we have to get back into the center of the attention. So for that, we developed something called positive sustainability, and the meaningful tourism paradigm is a tool which is a result of that. And the basic idea is that tourism only works if all stakeholders get better quality, more benefits, and more satisfaction out of it. So, and of course, the question is, how do you measure that? So we have, for tourism success, the most used KPI is very simple: arrival numbers. How many international arrivals? But this is not really telling you anything about how long people are staying, how much they're spending, how much good they're bringing to the host community as a whole, how much damage is done. So therefore, you need obviously more KPIs, and this is what we tried to develop here. And for that, we looked at 88 countries, and we developed 72 indicators. 12 of them look at the total situation of tourism and tourism development in a country, and then we have 10 indicators for each of the 6 main stakeholder groups. So the countries we have selected are all United Nations members, except 2, Aruba and Puerto Rico, which for some specific reasons we will come to later, we have included. And they present countries which had more than $2 billion international tourism revenue in any of the last 5 years. And this publication, as I said, is distributed free of charge for everybody. You can download it from our website. And if you need more detailed information, just give us a shout and we will see how we can offer this to you. The organizers of the whole thing are the people working in the Meaningful Tourism Center, of which I have the pleasure to be the CEO. We are based in Hamburg, Germany, and we are basically a result of the pandemic. Many people will know me as the China guy, and I've been working for Chinese tourism for more than 4 decades. The last 3 years, obviously, not many people were interested in the Chinese outbound market development because there was no Chinese outbound tourism happening. And the time available was used by looking a bit deeper at the overall development of tourism and participating in many debates. And many of these debates were always about the negative things, what not to do anymore, what to be ashamed of, and so on. And so it became apparent that you need a positive approach and a holistic approach. It's not good enough to help one of the stakeholders, that might be the environment or it might be the host communities, but tourism where the companies go bankrupt or tourism where the guests are not happy anymore isn't working either in the long run. So we established the Meaningful Tourism Center, and last year, 2022, we started a weekly newsletter called Meaningful Tourism Weekly. You are invited to subscribe to this for free. We published the first ebook and the first online training. And also last year, we had the first Meaningful Tourism Award with the support of the Berlin Tourism Board and the Berlin Airport. And so this publication we're talking about now, what you're seeing on the screen now, is the next step forward for the development and the dissemination of the meaningful tourism paradigm. So we plan to do this index every year. And also we are looking into having indexes for cities, for hotels, and for other tourism major players. So a little bit of the background, and I will go quickly through that. So I'm sure everybody's aware of the Brundtland report in 1987, where the first time sustainable development was defined. And more recently, the SDGs were adapted by the United Nations to bring the world forward in the period from 2015 to 2030. And that was originally seen that there are three dimensions: economic, the social, and the environmental one. And the 2012, even the institutional dimension was added to that. But when we talk about sustainability today, it is mostly just talking about the environment, which is important, but is not the whole story. And so that's why we need simply a more holistic approach. So people are saying, well, what you cannot measure doesn't exist, and in the industry, therefore, we have worked on defining KPIs for all the stakeholders. And an important insight is that it is not a question of balancing. And you often hear that you have to balance the interests of the different parties involved. That will not work. What you have to do is to come to a point where you have an alignment of the different interests, which is maybe not always very easy to do, but it is possible. And you should not stop working on the form of tourism and the organization of tourism until you have reached that point that the interests are aligned. For the 6 major stakeholders I already mentioned, you can see them here written down again. So we have seen that tourism has been very successful in the last 50 years. Up to the pandemic, it has been growing very, very fast. But of course, this growth also brought problems. We all remember the discussions about over-tourism in the years 2018 and 2019. And we can all see the effects you can have if there's one or even several cruise ships with 6,000 people on board come for half a day to a destination and flood the place with people who don't even spend much money. The effects of all-inclusive resorts, which are totally disconnected from the local economy, the Disneyfication of city centers, where all the city centers start to look the same, with the same Zara shops and brand shops and coffee shops and so on. So and for beach holidays, also that there is a big price war in the end, that you offer the same service, the beach, and then all you can do to be different from others is that you are a bit cheaper. So all this has been development which go far away from the idea of hospitality, of meeting other people, of learning about local cultures. So if you go to a Starbucks in Los Angeles, or you go to a Starbucks in Munich, or you go to a Starbucks in Jakarta, the differences are not that big, actually. Many discussions have been, okay, how can we solve the problem? And some people will say, okay, we have to reduce the number of visitors by increasing prices or by selling entrance tickets, so to say. But it cannot be a solution to say that only the rich people can travel and those who don't have enough money have to stay home. That is certainly not a democratic solution. And also, it is not a solution to say, okay, we are the travelers, we are the good guys, we are conscious about the environment, we are not using plastic straws, and so on. And over there, this is a mess of the tourists. These are the stupid guys. The planet doesn't care who is making the pollution. So a lot of the ideas which have been developed, which are all very worthy and very good. And we are, of course, also supporting things like responsible tourism and other forms, but they are all very much telling the people what to do. And well, many people don't like to be told what to do, especially if they are traveling for leisure, if they're on holidays. So therefore, using the concepts of positive psychology and consequently positive sustainability seem to make more sense. So I will not go into deeper into what is positive psychology, only saying that this has developed very much in the last 20 years, and there have also been some colleagues taking this concept over to create something what they called positive tourism. So there's a very nice book about this published 5 years ago. I recommend this to you. So how can we use meaningful tourism as a tool for sustainable tourism development? And you can see there are a lot of points mentioned here. And so we will see this when we look at the results of the index, which is our key topic. But just to pick out one point here is the last point is the elephant in the room is certainly seasonality. So because we have all accepted that seasonality is there, if you're a beach resort, okay, it's you only function in summer. If you're a skiing resort, you only function in winter. So that if you're a city, maybe the rainy season, people don't come. So all this is just based on a lack of basically fantasy, a lack of creativity. So there is a possibility to make every destination, maybe almost every destination, into a 12 months a year destination, and that will provide better jobs, a more evenly distribution of the travelers coming, and so on. And that is one of the things where we see this is a topic which has not been tackled enough and looked at enough in the past. So meaningful tourism is not just an academic exercise, but it's a very practical approach. So where we show, and of course, the Meaningful Tourism Center happy to support companies and destinations by making 3 steps based on an analysis, then creating the key performance indicators for all the stakeholders, seeing where are their contradictions, where are their problems, and finding ways to align these interests into one streamlined idea, and having, of course, everybody involved in the discussion of this. So not doing this only by some external consultants, but by involving the travelers, the host community, the companies, the governments, the people taking care of the environment, and so on. And of course, it is a process which is an ongoing, never-ending process as well. So that's maybe enough to talk what is meaningful tourism. Let's go, of course, to the publication. We're talking today, the Meaningful Tourism Index. So after a lot of discussions with experts and with colleagues who have been doing other indexes before, we decided that we will give 25% of the weight to the overall tourism situation and tourism development of a country, and the other 75% are split up equally among the 6 stakeholders. So which in the end means, and then of course this is all recalibrated, and where necessary it is calculated per square kilometer or per 100,000 inhabitants, if it otherwise doesn't make sense. And then all these values have been recalibrated to a point system between 100 as the best and 101 at the lowest. So for each of the 6 stakeholders categories, that adds up because we have 10 indicators to 10 times 100, maximum 1,000 points. And for the basic tourism situation, so as this 6 times 1,000 is 6,000, so there were 2,000 points, 25% for the basic structure. So here you have this in a graph form, and with the names of the different indicators. So the 88 countries we have been looking at, so they represent, as you can see here, 83% of the global population, 88% of the tourism and travel GDP, 91% of the tourism employees, 88.5% of global tourism arrivals. So we actually catch the vast majority of what is happening in international tourism. This is a list of the 88 countries in detail. You can see that Europe has the biggest number of countries in this top 88 list, followed by Asia, and then we have North America, Africa, South America, and from Oceania. The two big destinations are, of course, Australia and New Zealand. All the others are too small to qualify for $2 billion turnover. So these are the indicators we have been choosing, and you can see that this is the one for the basic situation, which is looking at the economic situation. But for instance, the last one is also looking at the democracy situation, because you cannot have a sustainable development if you do not have a control of the government by the people in one or another form of democracy. So I will not go in detail for the indicators. You can see them here. So these were the indicators for travelers. And well, just to say that we have always chosen 6 quantitative indicators, 3 qualitative indicators, and then we had an international team of experts, and they have also weighted this according to specifics of the country. So 1/10 of these points come from what an expert has been saying, that something is maybe overreported or underreported in a specific country. So these are the indicators concerning the situation of the host communities and what they get out of the economic development in connection to tourism. These are the indicators for the people working in the tourism industry. And of course, this is one of the clear signs that not all have been perfect in the previous organization of tourism. As we see now all over the world, the employees of tourism service providers and hospitality service providers who had to find another job in the last 3 years during the pandemic, many of them are not coming back because they found that they can have a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, sitting down, nobody shouting at me, job for the same money, compared to what they had before in tourism and hospitality. So that also, if we don't care about the interest of all stakeholders, including employees, we will not have a successful, sustainable tourism development. These are the indicators for the companies themselves. So, because obviously they need to survive, they need to be able to innovate and to grow. We have the indicators for the government on different levels, from national to local, and what they get out of it, which can be money, of course, in the form of taxes, but also the capability to do some regional development support, and hopefully even helping to keep peace with your neighbors and the rest of the world. And finally, but certainly not the least important, is the environment, and the question, how is tourism, international tourism especially, affecting the environment, and what is done to support, to at least minimize the negative effects and to mitigate the effects of tourism activities. Of course, we have aligning our indicators and then the KPIs to the Sustainable Development Goals. And well, some people in tourism say, okay, we concentrate on a few SDGs, in most cases 8, 12, 14, and forget about the others. Again, I don't think this is a very good idea. So a holistic approach is looking at all SDGs, and you can see here an overview that altogether all 17 SDGs are taken care of by our indicators in one way or another. And some of them, like, I don't know, for instance, number 8, decent work and economic growth, you can find almost everywhere. So this is what we have done. So finally, okay, what is the result? We can see that we have a lot of European countries among the top 10, but the number 1 is actually Aruba, an island in South America. And we have also both the Oceanian countries, Australia and New Zealand. And Singapore is the only Asian country squeezing in just at number 10. And there is, unfortunately, no country from Africa. But we can also see in the results that none of the top 10 have been on the head of the list in any of these 7 categories, or made it to more than 5 of the 7 categories top 10. So most of them even less of that. So there are no countries where we can say that they have almost everywhere very good results. So we have countries which are better in some respects, but not good in other respects. And well, we can also see that only the top 3 of the 88 have more than 50% of the points. The other 85 do not even reach half of the possible points. So if we look at the lower end of the ranking, so there we see that in the bottom 10 we have 6 Asian and 3 African countries, and the Russian Federation as the only European country. South America and North America mostly are, with the exception of Aruba, somewhere in the middle between position 58 and 71. And well, at the very bottom we have Iraq. Well, not very surprisingly, and Iraq is indeed in all categories in the bottom 10. So this is in a graphic way the overall score, and you can see the darker the blue, the higher the number of points. And this is the score table, and you can see Aruba with a score of 55.1 is on rank number 1. Number 2 is Iceland. Number 3 is Switzerland, followed by other 3 more European countries: Denmark, Norway, and Netherlands. And then we have Australia and New Zealand, and then Finland, and finally in position 10, Singapore, followed again by another list of European countries. Before then, we have with North America, the first American country other than Aruba. So you can have a look at the other bottom, sorry, the top half, and the bottom half looks like this, starting with Cuba in position 45. China is in position 50. And at the end of the table, not very surprising, you have some, let's say, troubled countries which face a lot of economic and political difficulties, at least at the moment. And that includes those are the last 5: Iran, Myanmar, Lebanon, Nigeria, and Iraq. So for the basic points, so we can see here the top 10 and the bottom 10. So and this is the big strengths, the main reason why Aruba is overall winner, that in the level of basics they are really way ahead of everybody else. So, and you can see that for some of the other islands, so they have very good basic infrastructure and so on, but like for instance Bahamas, are only on 26 overall ranking, and all the Maldives are only on 29, but they still are in the top 5 for the basics. And at the bottom, that is on the right hand side, you have the bottom 10. You can see at the very end of the table, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Azerbaijan having the least positive results for the overall tourism structure and the overall tourism development in the years, the last 5 years. For travelers and their increase of quality, benefits, and satisfaction, there's just one country which reaching more than 50% of the maximum of 1,000 points, and that is, maybe not surprisingly, Japan. But Japan is also a good example that only in the other category government. So Japan is in the top 10. So also Japan is not showing up with very positive results for the other categories. And following Japan, we will see there are countries which are major players in tourism arrivals, with the exception of Qatar. So let's have a look. We can see there's with the quality and satisfaction of travelers, we see Thailand at number 2, Italy at number 3, and then Qatar, Korea, Singapore, and so on. And at the bottom, we have Peru, Nigeria, Albania, Kazakhstan, and Iraq. So when we come to the hosts, we can see that most of the top 10 are European countries. So it seems clear from all the indicators that especially Northern European countries take care that the host communities get something out of the tourism development, whereas at the bottom we have 4 African countries. So you can see the top 10, Norway, Denmark, then Switzerland, but then also Iceland, and later on Finland and Sweden. But at the bottom 10, we have Ethiopia, Tanzania, South Africa, Nigeria, a couple of African countries where from our indicators, it looks like not much value is given to the interest of the host communities. When it comes to staff, surprisingly, maybe for some people, Cuba is on top. So because there are very low unemployment rates, and also there are very positive measurements for the situation of gender equality, for instance, of the number of women in parliament, which we use as one indicator for gender equality in a country. So Cuba is followed by Ireland, Luxembourg, Finland, New Zealand. So for instance, but maybe to mention also here in the top 10, Estonia has made it into the top 10, and that is also because gender equality items, and at the same, not only because of that, but also partly because of that, we see Tunisia, Lebanon, Egypt, and, well, not surprisingly, Iran at the bottom of this list. Looking at the companies, so here we see the lowest of all stakeholder categories analyzed with regard of the scores. So we have below 50% of the possible maximum points for everybody. That is also the only category where China is among the top 10 here, because there is a lot of spending on R&D, and there are a lot of successful airlines. So the quantitative part of the situation and the work of companies is what brings China into the top 10. But on position 1, we see is Denmark and Portugal. And at the bottom, well, we have the three countries which are ranked overall at the bottom at 68, 67, and 86, 87, and 88. But only, of course, it is that Nigeria has a few points more than Lebanon, but it's Nigeria, Lebanon, and again, Iraq at the bottom. But also we see, for instance, Brazil among the least favorable countries for companies. For government, there's a clear leader. And again, this is maybe not so very surprising. It is Singapore, and the high level of law and order and the absence of corruption are important points for going in favor of Singapore. And so we can see that Iceland, again, one of the reasons why Iceland has overall second rank is that also here it is again the second highest in the ranking, whereas at the bottom end we see the Russian Federation, not surprisingly, and the Ukraine for obvious reasons at the moment, maybe not their own fault, and Iraq at the last one, again, also the last one in this category. Coming last, but certainly not least, to the question, how much is done to support the interests of the environment, which are, of course, also the interests of the coming generations. And here we can see that Costa Rica, even though it's only in overall ranks 31, has made it clearly to the top here, if you can see from the number of points, also with quite a distance before Sweden and Iceland are coming. And again, there is then the big gap before we have United Kingdom in the fourth position. And at the bottom, we have three countries which, again, maybe will not be that unexpected to be found there. Saudi Arabia, India, and Iran. So this is the rankings for the 7 different categories, basic situation, and the 6 stakeholders. Of course, we also had a look at some specifics in terms of geography. So these are the top 10 for Europe, and you can see for all European countries, again, according to the color. So the darker the blue, the higher the number of points. And well, basically there is clearly not only a west-east scale, but there's also a north-south scale, so that the countries in the north and northwest are those with the highest numbers of points. When looking at Central and South America, so we can see here that it is those countries which were covered. The differences are not that high. So Chile and Uruguay are scoring higher, and Aruba, well, the little dot south of Haiti is the winner. For North America, it is the 2 big countries, Canada and United States, scoring higher at position 18 and 25. But also there's the Dominican Republic is in position 58, the lowest. So there's also none of the countries really being in North and Central America really being below. So for Asia, the results are not so positive. So it's only Africa is having worse results than Asia. So, and you can see there are some positive examples like Singapore and Japan, but and also South Korea, but that's almost about it. Africa is the most dismal result. So we have Mauritius at position 40 and Tunisia at 66. But this is already all the other countries are in the bottom 20 of the overall ranking. And so, well, unbeatable are the two countries we have from Oceania. So both Australia and New Zealand are in the top 10. And so therefore, if there is a contest by continents, well, Oceania is easily winning. We also looked at SDIS, so the small developing island states. And yes, Aruba is number one overall, but we can also see that many of these islands, even though they are all have a big importance of tourism, so they are not in the top 20 or well, half of them are even not in the top half of the rankings because they lack size, and with the lack of size come also a lack of infrastructure and for some of them, and so that is why we don't see them higher up. And talking about the countries which are most depending on tourism, so some of them we just saw are back here, but we can see that so we find if you look at the bottom 5, we find countries which are depending very much on tourism, but still when it comes to meaningful tourism, they are not very well placed. So there is certainly a big gap here between the importance of tourism and what needs to be done to have a more sustainable future of tourism development. And so the dependence has been calculated, by the way, based on the percentage of tourism employees and the percentage of tourism revenues for the overall numbers of that country. Further on, we have been looking at OECD members, and out of the 88 countries we covered, 36 are OECD members. And what you can see, not surprisingly, the higher the GDP per person, also the higher is the number of scoring they got in the Meaningful Tourism Index. There's something called T20, Tourism 20, which is the G20 countries, the tourism part. And so we can see the results are quite different compared to the top 10 of the OECD. There's only Australia and UK who made it in the top 10 in both of them. So which is certainly interesting to see that there are differences, and that this, what we just said, so it's not that easy to say, okay, the richer the country, the better the scoring. That is, as we can also see on the overall result, not completely true. This is basically the publication. So we have appendixes. So this is the alphabetical order. So it makes it easier for you. If you're looking for your country, you can have a look where you find your country in alphabetical order, starting with Albania and finishing with Vietnam. So have a quick look if you are searching for a specific country. So this is a brief list of all the sources we have been using. Well, let me say these are the main sources. We have been using several others as well. And of course, that has been not a small part of the work after you identify the useful KPIs, then to see, okay, where do we get the data from? And so, well, don't let me start talking about tourism statistics. It's a very sad situation that the industry, which is responsible for 10% of global GDP, 10% of global employment, has such shaky statistical grounds to stand on, but that is the way it is. So we made the best out of it, and therefore I think our data come from the best possible available sources. Of course, we also gave a clear definition. So for those who are interested in the small print, what is meant by received arrivals or seasonality? How is this measured? So you can go through all these, and you can see there has been a lot of work put into that. And okay, you can have a look when you download your own issue of the publication. Then you can have a good look at it. And here again, we gave in more detail the relation between the SDGs and the indicators. So what exactly is within the indicators and within the SDGs, which connection is there? Again, this is a long list. You can have a look at this. That's it. So now the last part is a kind of some little advertisement. So saying, okay, we have publications. There was a book published last year called Meaningful Tourism, Best Practice Examples for a Sustainable Future. You can get this. It's not very expensive, don't worry. From PayHip, you can see the link here. We have a weekly periodical, which is for free. You can subscribe to it for free using Substack. And we have also developed a training program. And again, if you're interested in that, just contact us, info@meaningful-tourism.com, which is a very good starting point to understand more about the meaningful tourism concept. We are offering workshops in different languages, in English, in Deutsch, in Italiano, in Francais, and in Espanol. Which normally they can be customized, but normally there are a morning session, which is more a training, and the afternoon session, which is more a discussion about the strategy and the implementation of the meaningful tourism paradigm into the practical work of the people in the workshop. And of course, very important, if you are a tourism ministry or an NTO or a DMO or a company in one of the 88 countries we have covered, and you want to know all the detailed results, and you want to get some analysis, and you want maybe also get a comparison with some of your competing neighbors, and also if wished for, of course, we can do also workshops and trainings. And unfortunately for that, we have to ask some money because this has been really a huge amount of work. And but I think it will be worthwhile to spend this money to understand more deeply what is the situation, where are the strengths, where are the weaknesses, and how can improvement be done so that in next year's Meaningful Tourism Index 2024, the rankings will look better. That's it. So again, I have to thank everybody who has been involved in the production. So some names you can find here. And so please download the copy for your own usage. And if you need more detailed data, give us a shout. So this is the first part of the webinar, and sorry for talking so much, but I think this is a new concept. I thought it's a good idea. Let's to walk through the whole publication. But now let's come to our guests and listen to their insights and their points of view. So our first guest today is Lars von der Wettern. He is the co-founder of Singular Places and one of the winners of the Meaningful Tourism Award 2022. He's based in Berlin. So Lars, let me start by asking you, why is a change in tourism towards a more holistic and more positive sustainability, why is such an approach implemented so slow?
Well, Wolfgang, that's a good question. Thank you. One of the things that I first of all feel that the change is slow because it is not yet actively searched very often by the actual user, the traveler. Because still until today, sustainable, meaningful, or more in-depth connections to the destination are linked to a loss on comfort, maybe less experiences, or less fun even in the destination. So people think, hey, I've been working towards this trip quite a while. I put my savings in here, or there's a very special moment for me, the family, my partner, whatever. So the attractiveness, the sexiness, as we sometimes call it, is not yet on that level that you say, wow, I really want to do that. On the other hand, becoming a more meaningful destination is also a struggle, because the existing destinations have very often built their success stories on an older model, which was driving volume, bringing this volume in so that your players locally, the offer of hotels, accommodations, B&Bs, fun, entertainment, food, etc., has been built to drive volume. And as such, you cannot just come and say, okay, now we don't want this in. We want a more meaningful one. And it's very easy to say, now we only want the upscale travelers. We only want them to spend money, to be careful with the destination. But there has been decades of construction, physical construction, roads, infrastructure, fun parks, airports, hotels, on that old model. And you can't just go and say, okay, sorry about this, guys, all your investment is worth less now because we've switched our strategy. So that means there's a lot of education that has to happen. How can you transform existing offers into a more meaningful, which is, by the way, a word that I feel is wonderful, and I'm really glad you're putting that on the stage, because that means meaningful doesn't mean that you have to cut out on your experience. It is just a more meaningful experience for you, but also for the local community. They will welcome you differently. Those who welcome you, having already readjusted their offer, they will understand that you are looking for a more community-based experience, a more authentic one, and also that you want the impact in the community to be more positive than negative. So you're not just bringing additional volume, you're bringing money to the right places that then create quality employments, select local suppliers, so that the community can thrive. And I think that is one of the aspects. Second is, for those destinations who now want to offer this, that maybe upcoming ones that want to avoid mistakes that have been done by more mature destinations, it is also not so easy, because how do you find these people? Where do they search? Because there is a lot of greenwashing happening, easy to achieve certifications. A lot of marketing by the old guys is spent on telling, hey, now we are fully sustainable, you can book us, you're safe. So the true shift in the industry has to happen from grassroots, becoming more attractive, showing that it's possible to also be profitable, because at the end, that's also what it's about. It's very nice to have a great offer, but then if nobody, or if just few people buy it, or you cannot support the whole community based on that, that's not a success story. And as a last point, it takes time. And people always think that solutions have to happen overnight. It's not this way. We have been promising in the 2 years of Corona, we're going to come back better. But then you go to some of the key fairs and events and you see it's not happening. And then you see other things and you say, oh, wow, okay, this was a conference. There were 400 people there trying to learn about community-based tourism. There is at ITB a full day of purpose travel. So the shift is happening. We have to highlight success stories this way to be an inspiration for others. And also we have to take our travelers on a true journey. There is not one certificate that makes it all perfect. There's not one solution that works for every destination. That's bullshit. And we have to be more honest about this. But if we become an inspiration, and then we can take the travelers on that journey, and more are coming back with meaningful connections, telling others that there is an option out there. I think that is the process that we need. But yes, we are still at an early point. But the good news is we're not looking at linear growth. Once we've reached a more critical mass, there will be exponential growth. And I think this is when the game will really start changing.
Thank you, Lars. Your arguments are very convincing. Yeah, patience is what is needed, but it is hard to be patient when the house is on fire, as we say in the first sentence of the Meaningful Tourism Index 2023. So, of course, recommendation marketing, which is probably the base of all this development, is also something which needs time. Well, let's come to our next guest, my dear friend Rodolfo Baggio. Rodolfo is a professor at the Bocconi University in Milano, and he is the, I think, global leading expert on system theory in tourism, having a background in mathematics. Rodolfo, thanks for being with us. So tourism is so important. Why do we have so few reliable measurements of the effects and the dimensions of tourism?
Hi, Wolfgang, and thank you for inviting me. Well, what to say? Tourism is a strange, complicated, and fascinating domain. We all know that it creates jobs, generates income, and, at least in principle, supports local communities. There is a strange thing, however, because strangely enough, the measurement of this so important domain is not, let's say, one of the best performed activities. There may be many reasons for that. Obviously, the domain is full of complicated and complex elements. There are tourist visitors, spending patterns, the impact on the local communities, both from a social and an economic and an environmental point of view. And these relationships very often are not very well definable, so are not very well measurable. Traditionally, we've been measuring the most evident elements of this domain, tourist arrivals, the number of nights they spend, the amount of money they spend at destination, and so on. These are relatively, let's say, relatively easy, even if to assess, even if not very often not very reliably. But we've been living with that. Anyway, my personal feeling, and not only mine, is that all these metrics do not may provide an overall picture of the volume and the value in certain locations, but they do not capture the broader economic, social, and ecological effects. Job creation, poverty reduction, cultural preservation, environmental impacts are difficult, have been, sometimes almost forgotten in this type of measurements. We're still missing a reliable way of assessing these factors. Mainly for what concerns the local community, because it's, at least in my opinion, the most relevant thing. After all of these activities are part of a larger set of, let's say, economic enterprises And the final objective is that of improving the quality of life of the residents, not to make companies richer or more wealthy and so on. And this is probably the main reason why I see in this Meaningful Tourism Index a very interesting proposal, because it finally provides a set of measurement that are able to take into consideration many of these factors, many of these elements, and most of the aspects I was referring to before are covered by this set of indicators. So the hope is that this well diffused and well promoted may become a real solid basis for those who work in the field, for those who have to govern the phenomenon, for giving them more, neutral and more objective basis for building their strategies, their plan, their policies, and so on, taking always into consideration the objective of creating more balanced and sustainable ways for the activities of planning the activities for this field. So I sincerely hope that this indicator, this index, or as you want to call it, has a big success and can be really used by all of those interested in the domain.
Okay. Mille grazie, Rodolfo. It's good to hear from you the confirmation of our starting point that measurement is indeed a problem and that the KPIs we have need to be changed. And this is what the Meaningful Tourism Index is basically all about. So let's go on and let's hear what Renuka has to add to this, and she will look from a different point of view. Renuka Thakore is the founder of the Global Sustainable Futures Progress Through Partnership Network, and she is based in the UK, and she is a very active lady, and as you will hear, concentrating on the environmental part of the discussion. So Renuka, what is your take on that?
Having toured to many places, I know that tourism contributes to major economic activities. But how much we care when we are going towards on a tour about the nature, or how much we spend, or what emissions we emit. You know, tourism is considered as a pleasure activity. So when we go out on a pleasure, we certainly completely forget about how we do, or how our activity impact on environment. And even have this tourism being a major economic activity on our planet, I think the tourism has not yet, up till now, has not been taken the responsibility in the terms of environmental impact of that industry. And therefore, I think we need to change tourism. And we have seen that especially in COVID, that when the tourism, like people were not allowed to go out, we saw that the carbon emissions decreased. And therefore, I think tourism could play a major role in combating climate change and decreasing carbon emissions. And it also can offer a way to increase our conservation, or decrease our environmental degradation, and it can increase socially. It can also be beneficial by having a cultural homogeneism. So, especially I would say that the approach which you have taken by developing this index, meaningful tourism index, I think that is very effective in a way that it does not only tell how well the tourism or the stakeholders are doing, but it also offers an objective index, which is really good in a sense of the people who want to engage with tourism can compare and understand that whether they are buying a better deal on environmental fronts. I think meaningful tourism is an innovative tool, and the approach which you have taken in a systemic way, like approaching it systemically, I think that is absolutely needed and should be developed. You should be developing it again and again. I was really impressed by the entries which you got. I remember that I was, as a part of the judge, I really enjoyed all the entries, reading them and seeing that their immense effort in, improving the performance of tourism. So I think you should, this is a very positive step toward in the tourism industry, and it would definitely be accepted by the stakeholders. And if all the stakeholders contribute to this, tourism would be more sustainable in a short term, and in just a short time, we will be able to change the paradigm that you are looking for. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, and thanks for pointing out that the environmental aspects are, of course, of major importance, but we cannot solve the environmental problems without tackling also the social, economic, and political issues connected to that. So I think this is very clear, and thank you, and thank you for all the good work you are doing in this field. So coming to the end, finally, let's go to Singapore, to our colleague Fazal Bahardeen, who is the CEO of Crescent Rating. And he has been publishing since 2015 already the Global Muslim Travel Index, so talking about halal tourism. And I'm very grateful to him because when we started this journey to produce and publish the Meaningful Tourism Index 2023, he has been helping us a lot in developing the index based on his years of experience with his own. So, Fazal, what do you think from your experience in producing such an index? Is this a tool which can help the tourism industry to move forward and maybe even in the right direction?
No, we're all focusing on educating and developing responsible tourism. So it's very important that we could measure how destinations are embracing it. So it's great to see that you're launching the Meaningful Tourism Index. So we have our own experience with the MasterCard Crescent Rating Global Muslim Travel Index. We launched this annual index in 2015, which has really helped the destinations tremendously to benchmark how Muslim traveler-friendly their destinations are. So I think likewise, I'm sure the Meaningful Tourism Index will help the tourism industry to really focus on the more transformative aspects of travel that contribute to sustainable development that we all hope will be the next phase of the travel industry. I think its emphasis on measuring and promoting meaningful and responsible travel experiences should help really accelerate the travel industry's efforts to foster more inclusive, sustainable, and meaningful travel landscape for all. So I really congratulate you on the launch of the Meaningful Tourism Index.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your kind words and for your wishes. And with this, we come to the end of our webinar to celebrate the publication of the Meaningful Tourism Index 2023. For the last time, let me point out, everybody can download the publication for free on our website, www.meaningful-tourism.com. And if you need more information than the free copy, especially for a specific country, then please contact us and we will provide this information and maybe also a workshop and some recommendations to you in a specific and hopefully meaningful and useful way. So with that, thank you very much for spending your time with us, and I hope that in the future you will be inspired by this approach. If there are any more questions, please look at our publications, at our trainings, and of course, always happy to answer all your inquiries. And with that, I wish all of you a meaningful day.